story. As you all know, we had a summit back in August up in Northern Virginia. And from that summit, it just kind of helped focus on things that we've been discussing here for quite a while. And from that, the conversation is that we need to make sure in the state that nuclear is recognized as a clean energy source and a carbon-free energy source. It needs to be in that conversation. And right after the summit, the governor released an executive order 43, and it talked about carbon-free by 2050. Now, nuclear is not in the actual executive order, but he did mention us in the press release. So I see that as a positive thing, and it also shows that we've worked well with the governor's office to make sure that we were included there. So from that, again, so nuclear is clean, nuclear is innovative, is innovation. That means we want to see more focus on advanced technologies, advanced manufacturing, and research. And then jobs and opportunity. I will tell you guys that one of the best things we have done is focus on the 17th Energy Cluster last year. It helped us a lot, I believe, this year on relationship building. But overall, we've done a lot of relationship building with the legislators over the years. But the 17th Cluster was something that they all could come together on, and it was really a good start for us. So let's go ahead, Tom. So this is where we were at in the fall. And this is where we're at today. First, I'm going to introduce two people, Randy Pearson and Elizabeth Parker. They're with 2 Capital Consulting. They have been my partners with our legislative efforts. They've done a great job help navigating through this. So SJ 60, that is a resolution on just the state supporting advanced nuclear and energy research here in the state. In the Senate, there was a little debate in the Rules Committee, but I'll have to say that I really grew to appreciate Senator Saslaw during this legislature. He really spoke out in support of this. And in the House, it passed
unanimously.
Unanimously in committee.
Yeah.
We really didn't see much debate on this issue. In fact, we saw a lot of support. Senate Bill 828, on the Senate side, really, all the bills on the Senate side, we saw a lot of support, not much debate. On the House, I'm going to just combine 828, 817. On the House side, there was a little bit more debate on those bills. In committee, Delegate Lopez and Delegate Marshall had some concerns. They expressed them. I did try, we did talk to them, but they were pretty hard on their opinion. But on the floor, they had a good debate. So 828, they both passed, but there was definitely some pushback. But we feel pretty confident in the support that we have on all those bills. We had some good support on the floor. Senate Bill 549 and House Bill 1303, that's our strategic plan bill, which we'll be talking about more on the next couple of slides. But the Senate, it is passed. In fact, everything except House Bill 1303 is passed and waiting on the governor to sign. The Senate Bill 549, it's gone through. House Bill 1303, it is now just waiting to be voted on the Senate floor. It passed the Senate Labor Committee on Monday night. Any questions on any of the bills?
I'm confused a little, April, because it says 549 passed both and is headed to the governor, but it's the same as 1303, so why does that have to be approved separately?
Well, and it's a companion bill, and it's what we decided to do on this bill is to have it show bipartisan support. Delegate Hurst is our patron on House Bill 1303. He's a Democrat. Senator Newman is our patron on 549. If those of you don't know about Senator Newman, we're basically all in this room because of Senator Newman. He's one of those in the Senate that supported VNEC and VNEC being established. He's been a huge supporter of ours. I can't say enough good things about Senator Newman, and he always mentions how VNEC and VNEC were in law because of the legislature when he speaks. And he also talks about the 17th Energy Cluster, so he's very supportive of what we're doing. But that's just how we did to show bipartisan support on the bill. Any other questions? But we don't see any problem with 1303 passing on the Senate floor. It passed, the companion bill passed pretty easily, so we don't see any problems. So now it goes to, with this, the strategic plan. You know, it doesn't go into law if the governor signs.
July 1st.
July 1st. But in the strategic plan, and the bills are all in your packets, you'll see that VNEC has to have a plan to the governor by October 1st. That doesn't give us a lot of time. And we can't just wait till the governor signs it and say that's the green light. We actually have to start planning now. You want to go to the next slide? So this is where we're at right now. You know, in the plan, it talks about promotion of new technology and opportunities, establish a research facility, or however that would look, a program, recognition of the role of nuclear in the Commonwealth's goals. These are this is what we've been wanting to get to for a while. Now we can put it all in writing, but it's going to take a lot of work from us in the room and outside of the room to come together and put this in a timely fashion, and I'll make sure we have the right input. October 1st to me almost feels like tomorrow. So, Tom?
So I think one of the things before we kind of move off of this, because this is what's in the law that's passed now. VNEC is really the lead on this, and I think as we've done throughout, VNEC is kind of going to be helping in an advisory capacity, right? But what April and I had discussed last week actually is how do we actually organize this so we're getting the right part, the broad participation, and actually moving this quickly so that we can be ready on October 1st, because I think that's helps lay out, it's a good timeline for not only anything that needs to be considered next year with the legislature, but also as the governor's office is looking at their energy plan and updating that. But as we were just talking about with all the activity again going on at the federal level as well, showing that organization and that movement here in Virginia, I think is very important to get noticed at the with the Department of Energy and other areas. So I would ask that everybody pay kind of close attention. We're going to have a couple of things we are going to ask of you after this for your consideration. And then as we go, we want to use our VNEC meetings, the next two that we have, and we'll talk about scheduling, but the kind of quarter Q2 and Q3 meetings as our kind of mileposts for this process to make sure we're getting it moved along, with the intention that in kind of the August-September timeframe at our Q3 meeting, we're actually looking at a near final draft of the strategic plan, considering it within the authority here, providing any kind of feedback, but also giving our, or at least considering it for a vote of approval and sending it on. So does that make sense?
So when Tom and I spoke, we broke it down that we need to have two task force, the commercial development plan and then the R&D and education plan. Our thought is that, you know, we have the two groups come up with their plans separately. We'll do it. We'll start together, but then kind of break off separately, and have them come back and work on a plan. But then everybody will come back together and work it out together. But we thought the best way to have these conversations to make sure that we separate the two issues apart and then have them work together and come up with a final plan. We are going to need additional people, although everyone around this table is great and we'd love to have your input. We would like other people from your organizations to also be involved in putting together the plan. And we'll be reaching out, and you can let Tom know if you have someone that you would like to be involved with, because we're going to have an in-person meeting probably as early as April with VNEC.
Yeah, that is one of the things I'd like to just ask everyone here to be thinking about is we'll either through Brandy or through April, there'll be a solicitation for kind of participation in this process in the next probably few weeks actually the next few weeks. And because of our role on VNECA, right, we can't just send all of us, right? That doesn't work. So please be thinking about who within your organization, your companies, would be the right person to participate. Because I think that's going to really be the key to driving this, is making sure we've got that broad participation.
You want to go to the next slide? This is just what Tom and I came up with. Gives you an idea. If there's anybody else you think, especially on additional stakeholders, that we should include, please let us know. The Virginia Chamber has always been supportive of what we're doing. The universities came out and spoke for our strategic plan bill during the legislature. Manufacturers Association has been supportive in our efforts. So if there's anybody else you think that we should include that's a stakeholder, just please let us know.
Yeah, and I actually, as we keep doing this, let's think about that a little. I actually wouldn't mind us discussing that here around the table, because these were folks off the top of our heads in addition to kind of the organizations that sit on VNEC and VNECA that obviously want to be involved. We don't want to be missing key inputs that could be helpful in this process. And we don't have a monopoly on who all those would be.
But one thing I do want to mention, VNEP was the summit was held we did it together. They helped us kind of formulate everything that came out of the summit in a document. They've been very supportive of our efforts. And the VDAP has been a great resource and a great partner for us during this whole process. And I've been keeping Trey Akins, who I work with there, up to date on where we are with the legislation, and he's been pretty engaged and on what we're doing as an industry. So, as you can see, this is our timeline. October 1st is not far. These are things that we'd like to get done. I will start planning the kickoff meeting later this week. I need to still talk to my board. I have not had a chance to talk to my board about where we're at. I met with them 2 weeks ago, but we're in a better place. And we know where we're at on the legislation more now. So I need to finalize some things with them, but we'll move forward in setting up a meeting and figure out a location for a task force meeting, which is always the conversation. Will be in Northern Virginia or Richmond or even possibly Lynchburg. Those are the three options. And then, so if there's any questions, any suggestions, this is what Tom and I thought would be the best way to get us to October 1st.
So it's aggressive. It's not, it's going to have to move quickly, but I think that was part of why we're trying to organize it, at least initially, around kind of the buckets that the legislation laid out. That's not the only things that can be considered in the process. So if there's additional ideas, I think that's important. But at least for now, that's kind of the direction.
I'm just curious if are there other states that have done something similar, you know, via legislation? Just, again, I'm just thinking if there's sort of a roadmap to follow, even though it's not gonna be,
On the strategic plan, but I mean, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I know on the carbon-free,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, yes. I know that other states have done it. But on the strategic plan, maybe Washington, maybe. But not that I know of. When I have talked to NEI, they have not mentioned anything like that, but I can ask again. When I've talked to them, it's mostly been on the carbon-free.
Check Tennessee.
Tennessee?
Tennessee and Utah, maybe.
Utah does have, actually, wasn't the resolution?
They have a resolution.
The resolution almost models pretty closely to what Utah did in their resolution for advanced nuclear. So we did look at that. So, but
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any legislative driven efforts similar to this. There's been Tennessee for one, there's the smaller effort out in Washington State called the Mid-Columbia Energy Initiative. It's kind of like a post-Hanford what planning session, but I don't know if there's anything that's been as kind of nuclear focused
yeah.
in other states, but I'm sure there's some examples I think we can draw on that might be good for the.
It's a good idea to look at. I've heard something that South Carolina, North Carolina may try to do something at some point, but I don't know for sure. That's just a conversation right now. I don't have anything definite. But what Tom spoke about on the federal level of us putting these things in place, I think we will be putting Virginia in a very good position on some of these federal dollars and opportunities. I mean, there's been a lot of support within the legislature on the resolution, like Senator Saslaw, like I said earlier, I've really grown to appreciate him. He's spoken up many times where I didn't need to. He did a great job. He's really into microreactors, so if anyone wants to know. Delegate Rip Sullivan, he spoke up on the floor and he did a nice job, I thought, of speaking up about about our bills. We found some really good bipartisan support on our issues. I can't tell you every Republican was happy with what we're doing. Can't tell you every Democrat was happy with what we're doing, but in the end, we did well. Any other questions or suggestions, thoughts?
Do people, I would like to spend a minute thinking about the other stakeholders that should be involved in the process. Yeah.
What about Rolls-Royce? I know they just set up a big manufacturing facility here. They're not doing nuclear stuff here yet. But are they someone that might be interested?
Great.
Steel company in Petersburg.
Which one?
I don't know what their current name is. It used to be Dow Steel, but
Chaparral, maybe.
no, it's not Chaparral or Dow, but the steel company in Petersburg.
Petersburg. Okay. And I think one of the things we hope too is that by pulling the Virginia Chamber in, is they could potentially put out kind of a interest to their members of who would be interested in participating. I think that could be.
Yeah, I can ask them that. And also, that's a good point on the chamber, though, is to also help us on our efforts. Is the blueprint is a great publication that they put out to make sure that that helped with the 17th cluster, and they've been pretty inclusive about nuclear and their blueprint that they have. I think it's every year or every other year. I don't remember, do you? But it's a good thing to just show what they're supportive of on the energy front and business in general.
But yeah, John, I think the community college system is something, especially in addition to the universities, that we definitely want to engage as we had at the summit. There was a really good cross-section there, I think, as well, that we're gonna work off.
You had someone speaking at the summit.
And Mike, I don't know if there's other folks down in the kind of shipyard area that would be, I mean, because one thing that we've talked about before is, assets that are available at the shipyard that could be applicable to things like manufacturing, or then also kind of the export potential. If there's other players down there that you would suggest, that'd be great.
We can definitely go back and talk to the bigger corporation.
Great.
I don't know, maybe the Virginia Manufacturers Association, are
Yeah.
they already involved?
Yeah, that was when we had manufacturers up there. That was
Right, okay.
who we were thinking there. So are there any other questions or comments about kind of the path forward here? So then, before we move on to the asset industry, or inventory, excuse me, let's talk a little bit, we wanted, as we have here, we want to use our next two meetings as kind of the check-in points. So Brandy's going to send out a poll to the group again to try to zero in on some dates. I think we're going to target June for the next meeting. And then I think probably we'll lean towards September, although I know that gets a little bit busier. August isn't as great because people are taking vacation and whatnot, but we would like to get it as close to a time that works for the strategic plan being finalized. But we'll send those out, and I just ask that be responsive on those, so we can try to zero in on the next two times, and we'll probably have some more presentations on how things are going with the strategic plan. And one thing I've thought about, we will be more in the midst, I'm imagining, of the solicitation process with DOE on the demonstration reactors, but I have spoken with a couple of folks in the Office of Nuclear Energy about potentially coming in and speaking with this group about the various initiatives they've got going, because I really think it's interesting. That office is kind of being transformed right now and very focused. And so giving a overview of how that's going, I think would be beneficial if folks agree.